Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Micah, the 3rd chapter, continuing along with the theme, of rebuke upon the mainly the judges, the princes, the rulers, and the leaders of Israel, as Micah was calling out their transgressions for their oppressive ways and taking advantage of the people. And that same spirit has remained in Israel even up until this time, which is now, they exhibit these same traits, these false leaders, these false prophets, but in a different way. So this is the book of Micah, chapter 3, verse 1. And I said, "Hear, I pray you, O heads of Jacob, and ye princes of the house of Israel." Right? So the heads being the rulers, and the princes, which were people appointed in high positions. Right? So they were also people of nobility or of high class that had influence in society. Micah was addressing this message here, right, to them, saying, listen up. Right now, is it not for you to know judgment? So of all people, you should be the ones to know and discern properly between right and wrong, because you're in that position, right? You are the heads, you are the princes, so you ought to know better. Who hate the good and love the evil, right? So, but rather instead, you guys turn, you pervert righteousness, right? You hate good things. You hate the having to do things the right way, and you love the evil. You love the underhanded ways. Why? Because it's beneficial to you in the sense of carnality, right? You are pleased with wrong judgment going out, so long as you're making some extra money, right? Or you're gaining some property, or you're getting what you want. Who pluck off their skin from off them, and their flesh from off their bones. And this is not referring to actual cannibalism. Okay, it's symbolic or metaphorical for taking advantage, at least as they were doing back then, of the people, which, as I mentioned, in today's day and age, right, these heads and princes of Israel aren't in positions of rulership per se, but more so positions of influence. So these are the modern day Israelites, right? Some that know the Israelites, some that don't, but mainly those that are in positions of influence and have a following of other Israelites or other, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans following them. Okay, so let's go into the word pluck. Yeah, so it says here, pluck, to tear away, seize, plunder, right? Pull off, rob, take away by force, right? To be robbed. So, they're not robbing people's physical skin, but it's like when the saying goes, they'll rob you dry. Here they were robbing, pretty much stripping the people of their resources, right? Of everything that they had, one would say, whether it was land, whether it was, a building, whether it was inheritance, whether it was even their freedom, right? By having them in debt to the point where now they had to be servants to whoever it was that had the lender, you could say. Okay, so back then that was like an example of plucking off the skin and the flesh from off their bones, mainly basically taking everything they had and leaving them bare. And today the way that they do that, right, is when you look at these so-called Israelite leaders, right, so-called because they call themselves that, but they're really Israelite misleaders. The way they pluck off the skin off of the people, which when you go into the book of Ezekiel, I believe the 37th chapter, it likens the process of our people being taught the truth, right, and the right ways, which would heal them, starting off in the spirit. It likens that onto dry bones that are now having the sinews, the ligaments, and all those things, the skin and everything, put on it, and then the breath bringing it to life, right? And so what they do is they mislead our people, right? They gain the trust of the people, but not by telling them the truth of the scriptures, not by telling them the 100% truth that the Lord has set us up to teach, but rather mixing in the sweet things that people want to hear, okay, and lies, so that they would have more and more of these people that want to hear them and follow after them by denying certain things in the scriptures, right? By omitting certain things in the scriptures, and then once they have the trust, okay, of the people and the following, they take advantage of them. In this modern day and age, it's mainly monetarily. Okay, back then it was by using wicked practices to strip them of their resources, their land, and all of that. But now it's through deception to make money off of them, and that's why a lot of these other groups, whether even ones that know they're Israelites or not, they'll have something where you have to pay for it, right? In the sense of, whether it's to attend one of the holy days, or to get prayers, or get a Hebrew name or whatever. There's always some service that they make lucrative, and then they tie this into it. Okay, so it says, verse 3, who also eat the flesh of my people, and and flay their skin from off them, and break their bones, and chop them in pieces, as for the pot, and as flesh within the cauldron. Now, once again, this isn't actually talking about cannibalism, right? It's not me. It doesn't mean they're actually eating real life, human beings. This means they're taking advantage of the people, right? So the metaphor here is like a shepherd, or one that is supposed to be a shepherd, that is supposed to feed the sheep, right? But rather they are feeding themselves of the sheep, right? And that's why it mentions here the skin being flayed, the bones being broken and chopped in pieces, as if you're preparing, food, right? Putting it in a pot, right? Or the cauldron. And what that looks like in real life, once again, is back then, basically reiterating verse 2, what they did in misleading the people to take advantage of them, right? To amass more wealth at the expense of the poor, or the regular folk of the land. And today, in this day and age, the way that these supposed leaders are feeding themselves of the people rather than feeding the people is through constantly taking advantage of them monetarily, right? And they'll make it seem like you're doing a good work, but in actuality, you're not really gaining the fullness of what you should be gaining, right? Which is the actual correct doctrine, the actual correct truth that is able to make you wise unto salvation. Because what do you think would happen if these whatever it is that these different groups charge you for, if their followers just said, "Nah, we're not paying anymore"? Things would change overnight. Verse 4, then shall they cry unto the Lord, but he will not hear them. So you're gonna do all this, take advantage of the Lord's people, right? And you're pretty much shepherds for hire, right? But you're taking advantage of the Lord's people, and then you turn around and cry unto the Lord when trouble comes. That's why it says, but he will not hear them, because he's been privy to all the deceptive and wicked. Remember, the inward thoughts, the Lord sees those things. He will even hide his face from them at that time. So at the time of trouble, at the time when you're calling out, the Lord is going to hide his face from you. He's not even going to look up on your situation to even feel any type of pity or sympathy to want to help you, as they have behaved themselves ill in their doings. See, you've been doing ill, underhanded, mischievous, and evil things, and you expect the Lord to come and help you in a time of need? No. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh concerning the prophets that make my people err, right? To err meaning to error. So they mislead the people. How do they do that? Well, they first come and give off the appearance as a man of God, as a one inspired of the Lord, but they do that for their own gain. as we're about to read here. So concerning these false prophets, right, that mislead the Lord's people, that bite with their teeth and cry, peace, and he that putteth not into their mouths, they even prepare war against them. Now, biting with the teeth is like, basically, when if you feed them, right, or you give them something that is satisfying, they're gonna cry peace. So they'll prophesy good things concerning you. And he that putteth not into their mouths, right? So if you're not giving them anything, you're not providing them anything wherewith they'll be satisfied or that they can consume, whether it's money or whatever it is, then they even prepare war against them. So then they prophesy negative things against you, right? Oh, this guy is evil. Most High is going to destroy him. He's wicked. He's this. He's that, and the third. So what was happening here is that these false prophets were prophesying not according to the divine inspiration of the Lord, but according to personal gain or personal benefit. If you gave me something good, I'm going to prophesy peace about you. So if I benefited, I'm going to make it sound like you're going to be good. You're going to prosper. You're going to be all right. But if you didn't, then, well, good luck. Verse 6, therefore night shall be unto you, that ye shall not have a vision. Now in here, in so many words, it's just saying that the Lord is going to bring that little run that they had of deceiving the people with this with these false prophecies. The Lord is going to bring that to an end, right? So he says here, night shall be unto you, and what does the night bring? Darkness. That ye shall not have a vision, right? So the quote unquote visions that they've been claiming to have, and the Lord showed me this, and the Spirit inspired me to do this, and I'm talking about the false prophets here. The Lord is going to cause that to cease, and it shall be dark unto you, that ye shall not divine, and the sun shall go down over the prophets. So what the Lord is saying is, by bringing that, it being dark over you, meaning the Lord is going to bring darkness upon you where you're not going to be able to divine. Now, how does that look? Well, their divination and their visions that they received were false. They were made up, and they were used to gain the trust of the people, and then they could take advantage of them. So by the Lord bringing darkness to that, to where they couldn't do that anymore, would be an example. I'll use a modern day example. You have certain groups that say that the MOTB is not the CHIP, right? And they say all these other things about the scriptures that are contrary to what we teach, right? And we believe that we have the truth, the correct understanding of the scriptures. What the Lord is going to do, and the way he's going to bring darkness upon them so they can't keep on going on with these false lies, is he's going to make the things that we've said come to pass. And the things that they have said are not going to come to pass. And when that happens, they're not going to be able to now keep on lying to the people, because now, as prophecy is speaking and it's not speaking what you were speaking, how then do you go about and try to, say, oh, how are you going to explain that away? So they're going to be in darkness when these questions come upon them, and they're not going to have answers to it. It says here, and the sun shall go down over the prophets, right? Meaning that time by which they were able to go about deceiving others is going to come to an end. And the day shall be dark over them, right? And what happens when you're in darkness? When you're in darkness, they're going to be like somebody that's in darkness, basically trying to find, and because when you're in darkness, you can't see, so you try to use your hands, you try to grab things to find your way around. And that's how they're going to be when the Lord brings the true prophecies to come to pass that they were prophesying against. Because now they're going to be scrambling to try and explain, scrambling to try and keep the sway on the people, but that's not going to be the case. And this the Lord did recurringly, because false prophets was not a new thing. Micah is addressing this because this was happening back then. Okay, and the Lord brought that he showed these false prophets to be false prophets by the things that ended up happening. I think even an account might be in the book of Jeremiah. But it's going to happen again in this time, because those same spirit of the false prophets and the same scenario plays out over and over and over again. Verse 7. Then shall the seers be ashamed. The seers, a seer was another name for a prophet, but these are referring to false prophets. So they're going to be ashamed. And the diviners, those that tell you, oh, this is going to happen in the future and so on and so forth, once again, falsely, shall be confounded. Yea, they shall cover their lips, for there is no answer of God. So when the Lord brings that darkness by confounding them, right, by using actual prophecy to show that these were false prophets, and it's on display, everybody sees it, they're going to be ashamed. They're going to be confounded. They're not going to be able to have an answer or make up, a story to justify why they quote unquote prophesied this, but then something else is actually happening. And that's why it says they shall cover their lips, for there is no answer of God. They're not going to have an answer to support the lies that they've been telling the people. Verse 8, but truly I am full of power by the Spirit of the Lord. So Micah, he addresses the false leaders, he addresses the false prophets, and he says, but concerning me, right, I know that I have the Spirit or the power of the Lord with me, right? I am full of the power of the Spirit, or by the Spirit of the Lord Yahweh, and of judgment, right? The ability to discern right and wrong and to call out the transgressions, as he's going to say, and of might, to declare unto Jacob his transgression and to Israel his sin. So he had been appointed of the Lord to do this, right? He wasn't coming in the spirit of deceit. Hear this, I pray you, ye heads of the house of Jacob, and the princes of the house of Israel, right? So all you who are in these high positions, listen and take heed, you that abhor judgment. And judgment here meaning justice. Why did they abhor justice? Because it didn't make them money. Okay? For them, their position was a money-making scheme. If you're in a high position, well, you can use that and it can become a very lucrative thing. So they abhorred judgment. Why should I just, judge righteously? Why should I, even if the poor guy is right, why should I judge accordingly so he can be good? Meanwhile, this rich guy who's wrong is trying to pay me all this money. I could use that. I could really use that for X, Y, and Z. So they abhorred judgment because their actions were all contrary to it, and pervert all equity. So the ways of righteousness, fairness, they perverted that, right? And when you pervert it, you corrupt it. As to where you're supposed to do this, they wouldn't do that. They would do something else according to what was favorable for them. So Micah was addressing this. Verse 10, they build up Zion with blood and Jerusalem with iniquity. So you're building this place, you're ruling this place on the foundation of blood, right? Bloodshed and iniquity and wickedness. It's not truthful. It's not honest. It's not righteous. What you're doing is wrong, and you're building a system on that. And you're oppressing your own people. The heads thereof, and when you go even to the time of Nehemiah, right? We went through that book. It got to the point where you had Israelites that were if I remember correctly, basically having other Israelites as servants through debt. Their children, being sold as servants to other Israelites as debt. And Nehemiah put an end to it. He said, yo, what's up with you, man? Like, look at the state that we're already in, and this is what you're doing. Verse 11, the heads thereof judge for reward. See, once again. So the heads, the judges, they judge for reward. I know my case is tomorrow, but I'm sure you wouldn't mind a little something, and then all of a sudden you get off, or all of a sudden, it goes in your favor, or all of a sudden this innocent man's land is now yours. And the priests thereof teach for hire, right? So instead of teaching the ways of God, right, the right ways, the ordinances of the Lord as they should, as it says, they teach for hire. Hire is pay. And guess what? They do that today, right? Those that know the ways of the Lord, instead of, as the scriptures say, freely ye have received, freely give. No, they'll say, pay me, and I'll open up the deeper mysteries of the scriptures. I'll sell you breakdowns. The Bible is there for, is there. You can access it. But no, I'm going to write another book and charge you extra for it. Okay? And what I mean is, You may write a book, cool, that's fine. But when you're writing a book that's trying to do the same thing that the scriptures already do, for what? Or join my Patreon and then pay this amount and you get the exclusive this. You'll get one-on-one life coaching sessions and all these things. All for what? For hire. This is the modern day, this is how it looks in modern day, but the equivalent was happening back then as well. And the prophets thereof divine for money. I could tell you what's going to happen. I could tell you your future. I could tell you if things are not looking good for you, but it might cost you a little something. Yet, and meanwhile, the true prophets, when you look at Jeremiah, what did he say? He said he got to a point where he said he wasn't going to speak, the name of the Lord. He wasn't going to mention the words of the Lord anymore, but it was in his heart like a fire. He had to let it out. Meanwhile, and the reason these false prophets are able to do that, to where you got to pay them to give you certain things, is because the Spirit of the Lord is not on them. If the Spirit of the Lord was on you, you can't hold back, right? You can't help but to prophesy. Yet will they lean upon the Lord and say, is not the Lord Yahweh among us? See, hypocrisy. You're going to do all this and then turn around and claim to depend upon the Lord, right? And boast as though the Lord is with you. None evil can come upon us. Yeah, no, the Lord is with us. In the name of God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we come to you. We're not afraid. We know we're going to be good because the Lord is working with us. Meanwhile, you're doing everything contrary to what he said, and you know it. Verse 12, therefore, so because of this, as a result, shall Zion for your sake be plowed as a field. So because of your wickedness, because of your building of Zion with blood and Jerusalem with iniquity, this place is going to be plowed like a field, not in a good way, meaning it's going to be broken down. Destruction is going to come upon it. And Jerusalem shall become heaps, which is what? A ruin. And the mountain of the house as the high places of the forest. And the mountain, remember, Jerusalem was a hill country, right? And the house, usually when the scriptures refer to the house, it's the temple or the sanctuary. So where that location is going to become, as it says, as the high places of the forest. Meaning, what's the high places of the forest look like? You have trees, shrubs, thorns growing in there. And that symbolizes that there's not really, much people around. And that's what happened, right? As Micah prophesied and other prophets as well, when the Lord brought calamity upon Jerusalem, ultimately in around 586, it got broken down. The people got taken out of the land. That's what you had. You had places where, you would have cattle and goats and stuff go around and start grazing over there because the walls were destroyed, the temple was broken down, the cities were burned, right? There was few people left in the land. So it just became like that, like abandoned. And that was a result, a judgment the Lord brought as a result of what? Of their wicked actions. So that brings us to the end of the book of Micah, the 3rd chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Recha Kodesh. And until next time, Shalom.